All right, we are live. Little Tuesday show for you. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. All that basic stuff. We'll be doing this daily. We got a lot to get into. The Lovie Smith decision has been the hot topic here. Had a kind of a disagreement with John McClain over Lovie Smith's decision. I love John. I just really don't know what exactly John is saying on this matter. This is what it sounded like today. This was John McClain. He joins us every Tuesday at 11 a.m. on Sports Radio 610. Obviously, the legend, buddy of mine. But this was his overall thought on Lovie Smith's decision to punt.
You like to punt?
Yeah, I thought it was a good decision. They played to win the game. Like
of course they played to win the game.
It sucks that it got to that point.
And with their offense at that point, it was terrible.
Exactly.
The defense was terrible.
Exactly.
But still, you play to win. And had they not made it,
the game?
Lovie could have gone in there and he could have said, guys, we got beat. I wanted to be aggressive. I wanted to try to win. We had a chance to pull an upset, and I went for it.
So let's.
I just don't. I can't. There's a couple of things that here, and he's not the only one saying it. A lot of you have said that as well. Shout out to the loopholes. If you listen, you are one. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 on Sports Radio 610 with John Lopez and Figgy Fig, best in the world at what he do. The effort mentality is something I don't get. So you just want a coach to automatically assume after his team was up 20-3, we haven't seen this team play. The only example that we have of the Texans playing football, they were up 20-3 on a team that was 7 points better than them. And you're just supposed to say, F it, go for it. And if it doesn't work out, then screw it. You know, we weren't supposed to be good anyways. That's how you lose a locker room. Yeah, you're telling me that a coach is supposed to go in there. And again, this isn't just John saying that, and you can get your comments in. We'll read those as well. But you're telling me that a coach, this over romanticized locker room stuff is hilarious. And I'll get into that a little bit later on. But you're telling me that a coach can just go into his locker room and say, hey, you know, I just went for it. F it. We're going to suck anyways. And that's going to go well. I was in the locker room. McClain's been in locker rooms. The players legitimately seem to be okay with Lovie's decision. Here's more from McClain earlier today on In the Loop on Sports Radio 610.
Let's be stupid.
It would have been stupid to try to win the game.
John, you'd
have said that about Brian Daboll if he hadn't made it.
No, I wouldn't have, and that's a different situation. That's 2 yards to win a game. This is 3 yards to maybe extend a game, and you don't even know what's going to happen after that.
And you got a field goal kicker and kick it from 50-something.
But think about what you just said, John. You just said that the offense wasn't moving the ball. You said that the
offense
defense was
awful.
terrible.
Defense was terrible.
And you're
and
saying,
that's why
you're saying they should have
punted.
gone for it just because F it.
Yep.
What kind of mindset is that?
It's an aggressive mindset that shows you want to do
mindset.
Whatever you can to win.
It's a dumb mindset.
That's what you think.
But a tie, but if you're comparing a tie or a loss, and that's the ideal situation, that's kind of a win.
You play to win the game, and
They
a tie is not a win.
This notion that they didn't play to win the game, I don't get. And I think McClain actually agreed earlier. Like, they played to win the game. The game got away from them. And they played to get the best result, the most realistic result. Like, assuming that the Texans, with the way that they were going to get a first down and then kick a field goal, get 10 more yards, kick a field goal. It's crazy. They played for the best result. But to say they didn't play to win the game, I mean, they ran a flea flicker on the first play of the third quarter. Hell, when they were up 14, they were throwing the ball. And Davis Mills ended up getting tackled. So this notion that they didn't play to win the game and they weren't aggressive or something like that, that's ridiculous.
Win the game.
Right? They did, except at the end.
Well, at the end, the situation called for the punt being the best result. You play for the best
So
result.
you probably liked the field goal last night.
No, that wasn't the same thing.
Well, why not? You had 4th and 4, and they kicked the field goal when he was 1-8 from 60 plus.
It wasn't the
I
same.
would have gone with Russell Wilson to get the first down.
Well, the Texans don't have Russell Wilson.
No,
That would be number one why it's not the
it's
same.
just 3 yards.
They don't have Russell Wilson.
It's not just 3 yards. Like, that's the other thing. It's not just 3 yards, because after that 3 yards, you're barely in opposing territory, and you still have a lot that you got to do. It's not just 3 yards. Brian Daboll's decision was just 2 yards. That's it. And I think maybe the Texans would have done it in that situation. The Nathaniel Hackett thing, we'll get into that in a sec. That was one of the dumbest displays of coaching that I've ever seen. In the post conference today might have been even worse, but there's no comparison between Brian Daboll's decision and Nathaniel Hackett's decision. Here's more with McClain earlier today on Sports Radio 610.
Let me change my mind.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I don't understand how you can say all this stuff was bad and then say that you play to win the game.
Well, there is an argument,
I think you should have tried to win the game.
There is an argument because all that stuff is bad. Just take your shot right there, because they may give it up even more. So I get the point. Like I've told Landry that, by itself in a bubble, if he has this, a team that's going to be contending and all this other stuff, I'm good with it. But I just thought they should have gone for it. Just for the sake of
Mills going
for it. Yeah.
Or OJ Howard for 3 yards was something that they should have tried.
So in 2018, we had you on. You thought Frank Reich.
Listen to this. Listen to this part.
Of course not. I thought it was a stupid decision. What does that have? That doesn't have jack squat to do with yesterday.
What do you mean?
The day's Monday.
What do you mean?
Sunday.
If he would have punted, then they would have gotten a tie and they would have won the division. Like the Indianapolis Colts literally would have won the division if they had.
I don't give a rat's you know what about the Colts in 2018. I'm talking about the Houston Texans in 2022.
But my question, John, is how is that dumb and this isn't? It's fourth.
I don't even remember about that, and I covered it, and I was there.
Well, what happened?
I'm only looking at this season.
They were in
this
overtime.
game. I don't look back. I'm like Nick Casario.
The Colts were in overtime.
It's got nothing to do with today.
You just said it
I'm
was
only
dumb.
looking toward the Broncos.
You just said it was dumb, and it was the same thing.
Because it didn't work.
Oh, it's that simple? So if it didn't work, then it's dumb?
If it worked, it'd have been really smart.
Oh, my.
Just like Brian Daboll didn't work, he'd be vilified
Would not.
in New York. Now he's the
Would
most
not.
aggressive
Completely
coach of all the coaches in the NFL.
That's 2 yards.
And they love him till the next game.
That's 2 yards to win a game with 3 timeouts and 106 remaining. That's not the same as what the Texans were facing.
26 seconds left. You get a first down. You complete another pass. Fair bearing. Field goal. Game over.
All right. That's John McClain. You can hear him every Tuesday on In the Loop on Sports Radio 610. The comparisons and the dialogue about this are just really, really silly to me. I don't understand it. And I just want to give like an actual example of what the reaction is when a decision like this was made. This was Frank Reich. This was in 2018. The Indianapolis Colts were 1-2. The Houston Texans were 0-3. And you had the Indianapolis Colts. Look at the situation. 4th and 4. The Texans were 4th and 3. Indianapolis is at the 43-yard line. The Texans were on the 48-yard line. So this is a situation. Just listen to the commentary in real time, because to me, the most simplistic thing that people keep saying is, well, if this would have happened, you would have said. That's not how I function. That is not how I function. I go on record. That's not how anyone at this. I mean, maybe I'm not going to speak for anyone else at the station, but that's not how I function. But let's just watch this in real time, because I said at the time, I said during the game, I said after the game, that was one of the dumbest things that I've ever seen in Frank Reich doing that. And the crazy thing is we have this right in front of us. And McClain himself said that it was dumb when Frank Reich did it, but for some reason it was dumb for Lovie to do the exact opposite of what Frank Reich did. That to me is having your cake and eating it too. So just listen to the play-by-play of this, and you tell me what the announcers think in the moment with all these like hindsight accusations of people saying that it wouldn't have been questioned had Lovie done this.
Imagine that they run a snap. You got that extra timeout. Why not take another chance to try to draw them off sides?
Listen how shocked they are.
The football. Love fires, low pass, and it's incomplete. I don't get it. It's unbelievable. I don't get it. I mean, I understand being aggressive and coming from the Philadelphia Eagles and going on it in 4th down, but now all of a sudden you give Deshaun Watson 24 seconds right outside the 40-yard line. You essentially hand the Texans the game.
Exactly. And it was dumb when Frank Reich did it. It would have been even dumber if Lovie did it. Davis Mills isn't Andrew Luck. That would have been crazy. It would have been crazy. You take the tie. And I also think like this notion that the opposite, that you have nothing to lose, you have a game to lose. Like, are the Texans just supposed to say F it the whole season? I mean, that team that I saw the first 3 quarters looked pretty decent. So you're just supposed to say F it? Shouldn't it be the opposite? Like, if you've lost 12 games 2 years ago and you lost 13 games last year, so you've lost 25 games the last 2 years, shouldn't you be happy with a tie? Especially in week 1? I just don't get it. I just don't understand this notion. Y'all can keep the comments going in. We'll react. Brian says his dad grew up with John in Waco and they were good friends. I'm so happy you're on YouTube. Bryce Young, here we come. Yeah, John's a great guy. Me and John get along. Look, we just gotta hold each other accountable. We go back and forth. I love McClain. Everything about him. He's obviously a legend. Bryce Young, yes. Big fan. Roger says that John lives in the past along with the Oilers. Sometimes that is that. And I've called John on that a little bit before. It's really rich of John McClain to say he doesn't live in the past. And again, if you listen to me and John McClain and listen every Tuesday, 11 a.m. on Sports Radio 610, we don't coast. We don't sit there and just waste your time. We're gonna maximize our 30 minutes with John McClain. And I'm damn sure going to maximize it. But I think it's really rich when John McClain says, I don't live in the past. You know how many effing Love You Blue stories I have to hear every time I talk to him? We did a damn segment on some guy he's trying to get in the Hall of Fame that played in the 60s. He was talking about that for 4 minutes. You can tell me you don't live in the past? You can't go back to 2018? Come on, John. Braden says, I support the decision to tie, but I can see the anger because this season doesn't matter and a win would feel a lot better than the pain of a loss when we know we are building for the future. I don't know what this season doesn't matter means. Like, what does that mean? Like, is there no chance that the Texans compete? Like, is there no chance? I mean, this team's better than last year's. They played good enough to win yesterday. It was the first look that we got of them. This season doesn't mean anything. I know there's a process over results mentality, but at this point, I don't think you can function like that. I definitely wouldn't want Lovie Smith to do that. But I'll keep reading your questions. Just keep them coming, and we will react to those. This was interesting. This was the Frank Reich reaction because there is an identical thing, identical situation that happened. This was the reaction of the people at ESPN when Frank Reich decided to go for it on 4th and 4, a situation that Lovie Smith decided to do the complete opposite. This was the reaction on ESPN. This was on Get Up. This is going to be Rex Ryan, and then you're going to hear from Mike Greenberg.
What do you think about that decision to go for it on 4th down?
When I saw it, I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like that literally, that's the first thing that popped out of my mind. And, I'm looking at it, go, the only way the Houston Texans can win the game is if you make that call. Mm-hmm. And to me, it wasn't the fact that you were going for the win. If that ball's crossed the 50, then I would agree with it. I mean, 100%. Because you're going for the win, a chance to win. There was no guarantee, even if you convert that you're going to win the game.
Preach.
So you're going to tie anyway, possibly. But
Preach.
To me, it was you just gave the Texans a win right there by not converting.
Preach,
I'm
Rex.
going to lose my mind.
Thank you,
what
Mike.
he said. You just heard
Lose
Frank
your
Reich
mind,
say,
baby.
I'm not going to go for the tie, as though a loss is preferable.
Right.
Listen,
Thank you.
Every coach in the National Football League, be aware of this. They have
Thank
cut
you.
overtime down from 15 to 10 minutes. It's not a coincidence that there have been so many. We already had 2 ties in the NFL this year, and there are going to be more. This is a factor that coaches now have to take into consideration. A tie is better than a loss. And if you say I will go for it 10 out of 10 times because I just am programmed not to play for a tie, then you know what you're not doing? You're not doing your job.
Thank you. 100%. Like this assumption that you get 3 yards and then all of a sudden you win, it's a huge assumption, especially if you watch that team. But we'll move past that kind of. But I just think it's madness. There's a lot of madness going on with the Lovie decision. I think the coach showed a good feel for the game. It felt like he knew what the hell was going on, and I supported it. The Daboll and Hackett comparison's got to stop. Like we've got to stop that. Brian Daboll went for 2 and needed 2 yards and had 3 timeouts and over a minute left, and he gave the ball to one of the best performers of week 1 of the NFL in Saquon Barkley, who, when he's healthy, is one of the best players in the NFL. Let's stop that comparison. The Nathaniel Hackett thing, let's not even start to compare that, because that was one of the worst decisions I've ever seen in my life. I was watching David Hellman on FS1 today, and I think 2 kickers in NFL history have made a field goal of that distance. There have been like 30 attempts in the last 20 years, or 20 or 30 years from that distance. And the 4th and 5 percentage last year in the NFL, like the percentage of conversion on 4th and 5, I think it's like 45% or something like that. So you aren't playing the numbers there. That's not analytic. It didn't make sense. And what made it even more funny, and I think a lot of Texans fans can relate to this, was Nathaniel Hackett today. He did something really dumb, and then he went David Culley, much like David Culley against New England last year, and he admitted he did something dumb, and he probably should have done something different.
The big one that it comes down to, coach, is 4th and 5 with Russell Wilson or 64 yards with Brandon McManus.
Yeah, looking back at it, we definitely should have gone for it. Just not, one of those things you look back at it and you say, of course we should go for it. We missed the field goal. But in that situation, we had a plan. I mean, we had a plan. We knew that the 46 was the mark. We were 3rd and 15, I think, 3rd and 13. I'm more upset about that play before it, to lose yards, to be able to, getting that there would have definitely been better to be able to call that same play and get extra yards. But he dumps it out to Javonte. Javonte makes a move, goes a lot farther than I think we had anticipated. We were expecting to go for it on 4th down. And then you hit the mark, the mark that we had all set before we started. We said 46 yards, 46-yard line was where we wanted to be. And we got there. So we had to make the decision if we wanted to give it to, Brandon, and we did. And it didn't work. It sucks, but hey, that's part of it.
Yeah, it is part of it. And he's 1 game into his tenure. He's already looking like a dope. Going to the questions, Jim says, why didn't they bring Driscoll in? They done it twice earlier, ran for a 1st down. I don't know. Maybe they didn't trust him. Don't really know. Braden, I mean, I know the coaching staff can't think like that, but I'm just saying what it seems like from those that are mad about the decision. But I agree with you. Fans would have been outraged. Tony Yayo says, are you going to get Clay Travis of Outkick on a future stream? Probably not. Steven says, yo, what's up? And then Brian says, how do we stack up against Denver? Russ looked off in the Seattle game. Thanks. We're going to move on to Denver after we talk about Nathaniel Hackett. Texans might have run into a perfect situation here with the Denver Broncos in that they're on a short week. Nathaniel Hackett seems to be a dope. He doesn't know what he's doing. And the Texans kind of had a teachable moment where they didn't face defeat. I am not very high on Nathaniel Hackett. I understand the hire, but that there are coaching mistakes and there are rookie mistakes, and it's going to happen. Like there's going to be growing pains. Hell, veterans even make mistakes. You see Andy Reid a lot of times with clock management, but that level of incompetence in that situation, I think it's ridiculous. And there tends to be like an over romanticization, however you say it. People over romanticize like messages to the locker room, and a lot of time it's just made up. And even if you try to think about it, it doesn't make sense. Like the notion that Lovie Smith goes for it and they don't get it, and that somehow, and they take a loss, and somehow Lovie Smith just gathers his team around for 15 minutes and says, guys, I did this because I believe in you. I think that's made up. The Indianapolis thing, and this was the most hilarious example of it. When Indianapolis in week 4 against the Texans, when they were 1-2 and the Texans were 0-3, and we just laid out the situation. When Indianapolis went for it and they ended up making the playoffs, they actually ended up handing the Texans an assing out there at NRG. They beat the hell out of them. Just pure dominance. Shout out to Marlon Mack, Texan legend and Colt legend, for his performance in that. But when that happened, you had a lot of people like these blowhard, over-romanticized football guys who just say stuff just to say stuff. A lot of it like being like former players that try to like just over-romanticize stuff and say stuff that can't be proven. There were some people that were like, well, Frank Reich sent a message to his team early in the season, and he showed them that he believed in them, and that's why they did this. They lost the next 2 weeks. Like they got beat down 1 week, and then they lost the week after that. So is it like a delayed belief? Like people tend to like over-romanticize and act like there's like some sort of message that's going to be sent. I know Lopez has said on the show, that would have been a great message to the city. No, I think the message to the city and like the joy of the city, the opportunity for that to happen, that was when you were up 17 points. That was when you were up 14 points before Laramie Tunsil or whoever miscommunicated and Davis Mills got hit. That was the opportunity. That opportunity went away. Your defense got gassed. Your offense started sputtering around and they were lost. Like that opportunity was gone. You had that opportunity. All you had to do was communicate. Really, all you had to do was punt instead of fumbling there, if we really want to look at it. But like this message, like this hidden message, a lot of times it's just like blowhard BS, and there's no way of proving it. So I don't really understand that. But I do think Nathaniel Hackett, like 1 weekend, like if we're power ranking the coaches, the new head coaches in the NFL, and there's 10 of them. By the way, they ended up going 6-3-1 this week. Like Nathaniel Hackett's by far the dumbest of all of them. He's at the very bottom of the list. And if you listen to him at the podium, this guy seems like he's got real buffoon potential. Like he's got David Culley vibes. He's got Jim Tom Sula vibes. He's got really, really, really strong potential to be one of the dumber coaches in the NFL. Because the message that he sent to his team, and I don't think this is over romanticized. You tried to do something that's happened twice in NFL history. You had 50 seconds remaining. You had Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson didn't look great. The guy that messaged earlier was right. Russell Wilson didn't look great for the Denver Broncos, but he's still Russell Wilson, and he's still playing in a game that means a lot to him. And instead of putting the ball in Russell Wilson's hands, you decided that you were going to kick a 65-yard field goal and kill 30 seconds to do it. And then after that, you decided you're going to use your timeouts for what? I mean, that was just one of the most pathetic displays ever. And there's another angle to it too. Like, what is Russell Wilson doing? Like, is Russell Wilson at least talking to the coach and saying, hey, coach, I can get this? Like, how can Russell Wilson be okay with his coach doing that? Like, shouldn't there have been like some visible disappointment on the sidelines with Russell Wilson? The whole thing was a joke. And I don't like, there are growing pains and there's just flat out stupidity. And Nathaniel Hackett, 1 week in, he looks like an absolute bozo. And I wasn't high on Denver before the season. I'm not high on him now. I think they'll beat the Texans just because I think they are a better team. But they have a absolute bozo coaching them in Nathaniel Hackett. And it's hard for me to imagine him not in other situations being a bozo, or else someone's just going to have to step in and help him, because that was embarrassing. That was pitiful. And to compare Lovie Smith, what Lovie Smith did to Nathaniel Hackett, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. The Daboll comparison's ridiculous, but the Nathaniel Hackett comparison, give me a damn break. I can promise you that Lovie Smith does. David Culley doesn't do that. Dave Campo with the Dallas Cowboys doesn't do that. That was dumb. Like, that was absolutely dumb. And I think the Texans might be facing a pretty dumb coach in Denver. Texans opening as a 10-point dog on the road against the Denver Broncos. And Denver came out of this Monday night game relatively healthy. 10 points probably seems about right. If I were betting, I would probably take the 10 points just because more times than not, I'm going to take 10 points. We don't know how this Texans team is going to play on the road. We don't know how they're going to respond to the Indianapolis situation. We don't know how Denver's going to play at home. Denver did kind of shoot themselves in the foot last night on top of Nathaniel Hackett being dumb. But they also got to the 1-yard line and fumbled twice. Like, that's not something where you look at the team and you say, well, this team just lacks discipline. No, that's just athletes making mistakes. But they did get to the 1-yard line. So we'll see how the Texans respond. I want to watch Kamu Grugier-Hill and how he looks, because he looked pretty banged up in the locker room after the game, and they're going to find him in coverage. Like, if they have an ounce, Nathaniel Hackett, I know he looks like a bozo when it comes to in-game coaching. He might know a thing or two about offense. It would take a complete amateur not to put in the tape and realize that 51 in coverage is something that you probably want to exploit. But we'll see. And we'll also see how Kamu's feeling. It'll be interesting to see when the injury report comes out. He seemed pretty worn out. And quite honestly, he was a beast in the run game. He was all over the place. And I would probably be worn out if I had to face Jonathan Taylor. Another comment, Landry, I just listened to your interview with McClain. The argument that needs to be made is Lovie made the right call for the playoffs. This game is a win in the playoffs with the punt. I do know Pittsburgh got in the playoffs because of a tie last year. I just don't think that the effort mentality, if you want to give me like some sort of sound reasoning, that's fine. But I don't agree with that. Another comment, Davis Mills, top 10 PFF QB. I would take PFF rankings with a grain of salt. But I didn't think Mills was terrible. Didn't think he was great, but I didn't think he was terrible. Also, Texans in first place. So we'll see what happens there. It'll be interesting. Someone said that God told Russell it was the right decision. You guys are absolutely crazy. But if I were betting, I would take the 10, just because more times than not, I'm going to take 10 points, double digit in the NFL. It's very hard to do. I saw ESPN Stats and Info said that this week, I think there were 6 games within 3 points, which I think that's happened opening week maybe 5 times, if I'm not mistaken. Doesn't happen very often, but there are a lot of close games. And some road dogs ended up winning. We'll see how this happens. I mean, maybe there's like an emotional letdown for Russell Wilson. We'll figure that out. Let's shift a little bit to college football, because we do like to talk college football. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. I'm going to do the basic subscribe thing. I think it's like down somewhere like there. I don't know. This screen. Yeah, I think it's like there. Please subscribe. Listen to me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2, Sports Radio 610. We're starting this thing up. Just putting out content is the main goal, and then probably get to making it look prettier and whatnot. Switching to college ball, though. Texas Longhorns, man, that one was a tough one for me. I was actually at a wedding in Dallas. I was watching it at Longhorn Pub, and I thought Texas put out a pretty good effort. The biggest takeaway for me is they have a quarterback. I mean, Quinn Ewers is a baller. I don't think there's any doubt about it. He's a baller. When it comes to the RPOs, now that he's figuring out the deep ball, the guy's going to be a stud. There's a reason he was the #1 recruit in the nation. There's a reason that Ohio State wanted him. There's a reason that he got $1 million in NIL money at Ohio State. There's a reason that he came down here, and there's a reason he was starting despite not playing football for over a year. I mean, he skipped his senior year to go be the third string quarterback or whatever it is at Ohio State. So the biggest takeaway was Quinn Ewers. He's going to be a baller. As far as if he would have stayed in, would they have won? I don't know. I mean, a lot of people believe that. I think they still could have won with the backup, who, by the way, was banged up as well. The talent on this team, it's undeniable. And I've watched every Longhorn game for 3 decades. That's my bond between myself and my parents. That's where I was born. Season tickets growing up. That's the only team I care about. Although I am drinking out of an OU cup because my girl's an OU alum. So, damn, that tastes nasty. Just kidding. But the talent is clearly better. I don't. There were some bad calls, but I think Bill O'Brien's also an equalizer. Bill O'Brien kind of equalized that game because he didn't really know what the hell he was doing. I'm very before I completely praise Texas for hanging with Alabama. I do think we need to see what happens the next couple of weeks because you're not going to have your starting quarterback. Your backup's banged up. You're facing 2 teams who want to beat the hell out of you and are pretty good football teams in UTSA. I know Coach Traylor is very fired up for this game. UTSA is going to want to beat you, and you're going to be a little bit banged up. And Texas Tech the next week, coming off that good win against the Cougs. Shout out to Texas Tech. That's where I got my my edumacation. Shout out to Robert Wormsman, rest in peace. Shout out to Pete Bruton. Shout out to the School of Mass Communications out there at Texas Tech. But I think Texas Tech's a very dangerous opponent for Texas. Going to Lubbock, backup quarterback, who knows how healthy he's going to be. Texas Tech appears to have the right guy in. They're coming off a resilient win. Before you praise Texas for hanging in there with Alabama, you got to see how they respond. And I think the perfect example is shout out to, in my opinion, the best radio host of all time, a friend of mine, best radio host of all time in Houston, and a friend of mine and coworker, Sean Pendergast. You look at Notre Dame, and that Notre Dame, the Irish, they competed with Ohio State. They were supposed to be like a 17-point dog, and they competed. I mean, they were in firm control 3/4 of the game like Texas, just ended up getting muscled at the end, and then the next week they lose to Marshall. That's the hard thing about playing Alabama, and there's a lot of examples like throughout the SEC, like SEC recent history with Saban is sometimes teams they dig deep and they play Alabama tougher than you would expect them to. And you're singing their praises and you're talking about how good they are. And then the very next week they have a letdown. And that's what Texas is going to have to figure out. But as far as the actual roster, you got some studs on offense. These skill position guys on this team, I would, in my lifetime, this has got to be like top 5 skill position guys. If you go back to the Sims and Applewhite years, that might have actually been the best as far as skill position guys, because you had Cedric Benson, you had a young Selvin Young, you had Bo Scaife, you had Roy Williams, BJ Johnson, you had Sloan Thomas, you had a lot of good receivers there. That might have been the best, like skill position. I'm not counting quarterback of my lifetime. And then in 2006, that was the best running backfield when you had Jamal Charles, Ramonce Taylor, and Selvin Young. And then you had Dave Thomas. I'll take it back. The 2006 was the best, but the Sims Applewhite was up there. The wide receivers on the 2006, though, you had Lima Swede, you had Quan Cosby, you had Billy Pittman, and you had a few other guys. Ramonce was playing some receiver too. So that was good. But I think this might be like 3rd or 4th. This skill position group is definitely better than the 09-010 team. 09-010, Trey Newton was starting at running back. I mean, Trey Newton. Shout out to Nate. I love Nate Newton. But Trey Newton, I didn't think he would ever start at the University of Texas. Dan Buckner was one of the receivers. Like that was not the receivers. That was not the bread and butter. You had Malcolm Williams. Shipley was good. Shipley's one of the better receivers in school history. But other than that, you didn't have a lot of depth. On this team, you got Sanders, who looks like he's the future leaguer. You got Worthy. You got Kane. You got Bijan. He's going to be a first-round pick. You got Roshan. You got Robinson. You got this is the best skill position group that Texas. It's at least top 5 of my lifetime, I would say, and I think that's fair. And it's definitely better than the one that they had, the skill position group that they had last time they played Alabama. But hard fought loss, not really a moral victory. I'm not going to lie. I'll be more proud of them if they win this week and do so in impressive fashion. They're 11 points favorite. It started out as 13.5. They're 11-point favorite against UTSA. And then I don't know what's going to happen at Texas Tech. But we'll take a look at that. We'll go back to the comments now that we're talking the college ball. Brian's got the Longhorn logo. He is out. Yes, he is. And Card is hurt. So we might be in trouble. Could be. And that's what you got to look at. You're banged up, might be in trouble. Who knows? Maybe you run the ball a little bit. Maybe there's a lot more Wildcat with Roshan and Bijan, which I actually thought they should have done on that 3rd and 3 before they kicked the field goal instead of Card getting sacked. But we'll see what happens. Did Sark scheme Worthy open? Sark schemed Worthy open a lot last year. And that's why I wasn't really discouraged on Sark, because the offense last year, there were a lot of missed throws by Casey Thompson, a lot. And they didn't have this much talent last year, but there were a lot. Sark, he knows what he's doing. Like if you looked at the offensive game plans between the Longhorns and the Alabama Crimson Tide, like Bill O'Brien, it's like deja vu. It's like watching the Texans again. The play clock goes down to 1. Bryce Young looks like doesn't know what he's doing. All of a sudden, Bryce Young has to roll out, make a play. It's like when Deshaun Watson used to get kicked in the face against the Raiders. Like it's absolute craziness. Worthy is a baller. Ewers almost had him twice early. Yeah, the Ewers deep ball is something that he's going to have to get better at. And it seemed like they were kind of finding their rhythm. Worthy dropped that touchdown early in the end zone. But then on the very next play, he got his face mask, or not the next play, I think the next series, got his face mask grabbed and still caught it deep. So it felt like they were finding their chemistry, but that's going to be fine. Ewers is going to be your guy next year. Arch is going to redshirt, and he's a true baller. Yes, Worthy is very small, but he's also very, very good. On to the Aggies. This one's interesting. The Lone Star rankings. I do my Lone Star rankings every Friday. The top 10 teams in the state of Texas. I'm not necessarily going to punish Texas A&M right now, although they are on a watch. But this is what happened last year with Texas A&M. And I know that the Alabama win kind of made the season and it was memorable. And I think that their recruiting class this year, although they've recruited well for a while, their recruiting class this year was because of that Alabama win. I think that was the key to this class. And as much as we talk about that Alabama win, I mean, there were some bad losses too. There were some bad losses last year, and that's kind of how A&M does things. But this one is inexcusable. And I'm actually kind of amused by Jimbo Fisher talking about how good of a football team Appalachian State is and all that. I mean, come on, man. Like we're talking about the number 1 recruiting class maybe ever that A&M just got. We're talking about a team that a couple of years ago, that fluke COVID year, and I think it was a fluky COVID year. You look at all the teams in the SEC, a large majority of them, their coaches got fired because there were a lot of dumpster fires. But you look at that season, you look at this, don't try to sell anyone that losing to Appalachian State at home is okay. Don't try to sell anyone on that. They lost to North Carolina the week before. And I know they got seniors and all that type of stuff, but that's not okay. If you're Jimbo Fisher, that's not okay. And I don't think anyone's going to believe that. But I could see them coming out very strong against Miami. I think they need a quarterback change. I don't think Haynes King was ever the right decision. I think they should have gone with the young buck. But we'll see. But Haynes King's not it. He's not going to get you where you need to go. And I think Jimbo will probably figure that out. But it'll be interesting to see how they handle things against Miami. As far as other teams in the state, Baylor fell to BYU. I don't think Baylor was ever a top 10 football team. I think that was just showing them respect. I think a lot of guys in the media felt guilty for sleeping on them as much as they did last year when they went from worst to first in the Big 12. Baylor's a good program. Art Briles did what he did there, and they've kind of been able to carry on what Art Briles built with Rule and now with Dave Aranda. But come on, that's not a top 10 team. That's definitely not a top 10 team. And quite honestly, BYU, they tried to lose that game multiple times. So Baylor, U of H, man. And I'm going to be out there myself and Figgy Fig. If you want to go out to the U of H game, just holler at me. We'll be out there. We'll have coupons for you to get a free hot dog and drink inside the game. We'll be hanging out, mingling with the U of H fans. They take on Kansas. That was an awful loss. And I know that the record says that the Cougs had a really good season last year, and it's hard to argue that. But I mean, what good team did they beat? Like the only teams that they played that were good, it felt like they lost to. They lost to Tech, and then they lost to Cincinnati. The talent is there. I just don't know about the discipline. UTSA, less than 30 seconds left, no timeouts. You're up 3. Dana's on the sidelines, high-fiving, acting like the game's over. UTSA goes down the field. They kick the field goal, and they send it to overtime. And unfortunately for the Cougs, they get out of there with a win. And I wondered, maybe they found a way to win. But then you go to Texas Tech, and it's the exact same situation. You kick the field goal to go up 3. About 30 seconds remaining. Dana Holgerson, high five, boom, overtime. And then you have the 4th and 20. I just wonder about the overall discipline. And I wonder, sometimes I wonder about Dana and, if he's going to be able to max what the U of H program can be, because I think it can be very good. I just, those are just the types of mistakes and the types of meltdowns that you just can't afford, especially when you start playing Big 12 teams. And I know Texas and Oklahoma are leaving, but I mean, you're going to be facing Big 12 caliber teams all the time. You've already faced 2. I think UTS, I don't know if they're Big 12 caliber yet, but you're facing 2 good teams. You've gone to overtime with the other. Schedule's going to get tougher. Dana's got to figure that out. As far as the rest of the stuff going on in college football this week, there are some matchups that are interesting. There's one that I'm really looking at, and it's Oklahoma. See the Oklahoma Cup here versus Nebraska. Nebraska just fired Scott Frost, and I'm actually really shocked how bad Scott Frost was at Nebraska. But they're only an 11.5-point dog against Oklahoma. 11.5. It seems like if I'm just Johnny Public, I'm jumping on that, and I'm taking Oklahoma. But I got a strange feeling about this one. It's similar to the feeling I had last week when we had Michael Jenkins on of the Daily Tip, powered by BetQL. And you saw Kentucky and Florida, and everybody was talking about Florida and how good Richardson looked, including me. But I looked at that and I said, what am I missing here? Kentucky's getting 4.5 points. They got a quarterback who many think could be a top 10 pick in Will Levis, the mayonnaise coffee drinker. What am I missing here? It's the same feeling I got right now with Nebraska. If I had to bet this, I think I would take Nebraska. And I wouldn't be shocked if it wasn't a game very, very late in the 4th quarter. Could be wrong. That just looks too good to be true for me. So that's one of the games that I'm looking at. Next week, business is really going to pick up. Number 22, Penn State at Auburn. That's an interesting one too. Penn State is a 3-point favorite at Auburn. Seems like I would probably have to take the points there with Auburn. And USC, they're just a 12-point favorite against Fresno State. USC is a really interesting squad. We talked about Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley. Someone just compared Will Levis to Jake Locker. Don't talk about my cousin like that. He's not really my cousin. I'm just kidding. But I think USC could be a playoff squad. I mean, Lincoln Riley took half his squad with him there. And the Pac-12 is a little bit of a disaster. But the thing, my main focus is going to be on the state, as it always is. I like to localize. So Texas A&M, and U of H are what I'm going to be checking out. We're also going to be checking out the Texans 3 o'clock start. I like 3 o'clock starts. I also like the noon starts. We're going to talk about this on the show tomorrow. Which one do you like better? When do you like your team to play? A case can be made for both. Do you like to consume 3 hours of football and then watch your squad? Or do you like to watch your squad and then, consume football afterwards? I feel like it's better when you just consume, and then you watch your squad, and then you get the hour break before the Sunday night game. I feel like I'm going to talk myself into that. Although a case can be made for both. But if you go to the game and you're tailgating like I am, and then you have to go cover the game, by the time you get out, the other games are about a quarter or two in, and you're kind of exhausted from going to the game. I know a lot of y'all tailgate. I think I can talk myself into 3 o'clock being better. But we'll talk about it tomorrow. Stanford Route, speaking of U of H, he'll join us. We'll also talk to baseball Spo, Adam Spillane. Astros just running away with the American League. I saw Yuli hit a bomb. Good for him. But we'll get more into this. It's going to be on to Denver for real. We probably won't be talking about Lovie Smith's decision too much more. Try to take a trip to Denver, talk to some of them. Probably cuss and discuss some more with John McClain. He's going to be in the studio when I go in there. I think he's got a little hit with the Pain and Pendergast. So if you haven't subscribed, do so. Spread the word. I'm going to keep doing this all the time, every day, and probably during halftime too. I'll do it on Twitter and Facebook and keep this going. So I appreciate it. Y'all have a good one. I'll talk to you tomorrow at 10 a.m. on Sports Radio 610.